Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dawn with Wreath Decor by Dawn, and today I thought I would do a tutorial and show you how I do my shipping for my wreaths. I get a lot of questions about how I ship my wreaths, and I thought I would just give you guys a really quick look at how I package up my wreaths and get them ready to ship out. So I'm going to go ahead and put my camera down so that you can see my work surface, and I'm going to show you how I box up my wreaths and send them out. Okay? So the first thing I do is I have my box, which is a 22 by 22 by 8. I don't use anything any larger than that. If I need a smaller box than for like a floral arrangement or something, then I use that depending on what the size of my arrangement is. But this box is what I use for all of my wreaths. So the 22 by 22 by 8 will fit just about all of my wreaths with bow, with any attachments. So I've taped up the bottom of the box, down the center, down the sides to make sure there's no loose pieces that can come open. I take one of the empty frames. I use the 14-inch Dollar Tree frames for the majority of my wreaths, so I just use an empty one to get my measurement where I want to put my holes for my zip ties, because I zip tie all of my wreaths down to my box for secure shipping. So what you're going to need for this is either a measuring tape, ruler, or a wreath frame to mark where you want to put your holes for the zip ties. So what I do is I just kind of eyeball the center, make sure my wreath is where it's going to sit in the box. I take my ice pick, or you can use a screwdriver, anything that'll poke a hole in it without damaging your tool, of course, and I just mark where I want the holes to go. So I use 2 zip ties to secure my wreaths to the box. So I'm going to poke one hole here and one on this side. So I'm putting one on each side of the outside of the wreath frame, because I want to make sure it's really secure when I send it. The less it moves around, then the easier it's going to be when the customer receives it, and it'll be in the same condition as when I made it. So I just mark those holes, and I'm going to take my pick and I'm going to lift up my box, and I'm going to poke the rest of the hole all the way through. And I'm going to give it a little twist, because those zip ties are flat, they're not round, so I'm just giving it some room to move. Excuse me while I hold this up. So there we go. So those are our holes that we're going to use to put our zip ties in. I use a 14-inch zip tie, and we're just going to go right straight down through that hole. And then we're going to pull it up and go through the other hole, bring it up through there. And I'm going to make sure that the end is down about an inch, poking up from the top of the box. And I will hold this up so you can see that in just a moment. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the second one through and do the same thing. Push down that flap so it gets that zip tie come through and not get stuck in between the 2 flaps. Okay, so there are our zip ties for our wreath. So now we can take our wreath and put that in there. Whoops, didn't mean to move the camera. So here's the wreath I'm sending out today. And this, you can see, has a nice big bow on it. So we're going to set this down right on top of those zip ties, and I'm going to put my bow so it sits in a corner. And that also gives me more room to maneuver my zip ties around my frame. So I'm taking that zip tie and I am going through the back of my frame here and coming out the other side. There's 4 rings on the frame. I want to cover as many of those rings as I can for secure shipping. So I'm going to put that through. And if you have a fuller wreath with more mesh and that on it, it'll take a minute to maneuver that zip tie through there, but it will usually go right through those frame rings with no problem. And then you're going to pull it down and attach it to the other side of the zip tie and pull. So let me see if I can get you a better angle over here. I'm going to move my camera, Put you down a little bit more. So now we're doing the one on the opposite side. So you can see that zip ties up underneath here. I'm going to take that long end of the zip tie and I'm going to put it through those rings of the frame. And I'm going to cover as many of those rings as I can. If you only do it with one ring, when you pull that zip tie tight, you run the chance of possibly breaking your ring, and you don't want to do that. So that was pretty easy there. So now that that's in there and I've got my zip ties on, I want to make sure I pull those as tight as I can without ripping the box, and so that my wreath does not move. It is not going anywhere. It is secure in that box, and it is not going to come out until the customer takes it out. I do not cut these ends off of the zip ties. I leave them on there. I also put instructions in for the customer on how to take it out. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fluff any bows, ribbons, attachments I have and make sure that they are all in the position they should be in. So when the customer opens this box, this wreath looks exactly like it did when they purchased it. I have a piece of 22 by 22 shipping paper. I'm going to lay that right over the top. I'm going to take the customer's receipt or invoice that I printed out from my Etsy store. I'm showing you the back because I don't want to show their information. It has what they purchased, how much it was, and I write a little personal note to them and thank them for their purchase. I also attach my business card, and that goes right in on top of the wreath. Cover that back up. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to attach a wreath hanger. And I just take the flap and I'm going to poke a hole in here on either side of this wreath hanger. And I'm going to attach it with a zip tie because I send a wreath hanger with all of my wreaths. Let me move my camera up so that you can see that better. Right there. So all I've done is taken one flap, poked a hole on either side of the wreath hanger, and I'm going to put the zip tie right down through those holes and secure that wreath hanger. Get it nice and tight without ripping your box. And you want to make sure when you put these on there, if you do this with your wreaths, that you also put it on a flap in an area of the box where it's not going to hit a bow or attachment. Because there's enough room in this box, it's not going to hit anything. When I fold that over, it'll just lay right up underneath there. So it's not in the way of anything. And I do cut these flaps off of these zip ties just because I don't want it to get tangled up in anything I'm putting in there if that paper were to come off. The next thing I do is I have a little baggie that I send all of my customers that has a couple of business cards in there for them to share, a little thank you sticker on it, and a couple of lifesavers to say thank you. I'm going to take a piece of my shipping tape, cut that off, and I'm going to attach it right here to my box. That's not going to flap around, and it's not going to get in the way of anything when I close that lid. Okay? So then the next thing we're going to do is I have instructions for them on how to take the wreath out of the box to cut the zip ties. So they don't have to dig in underneath the wreath to get it. They can just turn the box over, cut those zip ties off, and then they'll pull the wreath out just easy peasy. I print these out myself on a piece of Avery sticker paper. Peel that right off, and I stick it right here on this flap so that when they open the box, it'll be the first thing they see. And it should stick right there to the box. Okay? I also add a couple of little thank you stickers just in case that doesn't stick too well to the box. Those stickers will keep them on there as well. And it says thank you for your purchase. So now we can close this up. Everything's inside that has to go inside. I'm going to close this up, pull those flats together, and then we're going to tape it. And I'll show you, this is the same way I tape the bottom up. Take my little tape gun here, sorry for the noise. Put a piece of tape right down the center. And then I'm going to put a couple more pieces on there. Okay, so that's going to keep that nice and secure. Now these open edges, I'm going to put a piece of tape right down the side and fold that over. So now nothing's going to get stuck on those edges and pull this lid open until it gets to the customer. I know that noise isn't fun, but there's no other way to do it. So there we go. That is all taped up. Now let me show you the bottom. There's the bottom where I've taped it and the zip ties. So now where those zip ties are, I'm going to put a couple pieces of tape because we don't want anything snagging on those and ripping the box. All of the supplies will be listed in the description for this live, where you can purchase them and what I'm using, so that you will have that for easy access. I will also include some links to my affiliate links to Amazon if you'd like to purchase any of the products I'm using today. Now we're going to put on our shipping label. I print my shipping labels off through Etsy, and I use FedEx to ship my wreaths. For me and where I live, that's the cheapest option. So for your area, you'll need to check with your shipping providers and see what is the best for you. So I have printed that off. I have a label printer, and I print that off and I stick it into one of these little shipping label bags, and it self-adheres to the box. So that is protected, so that if it were to get rained on or get wet in any way from something spilling on it, it's protected. They can still see the address. Okay, there we go. This wreath is ready to be shipped out and on its way to its customer. So thank you for watching today. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section and I'll be happy to answer them for you. Have a very nice day.